does waste relate to air pollution? So what do you think कि इंडिया में कौन से टाइप का waste सबसे ज़्यादा problem है?
Yeah, of course, waste relates to air pollution in a major way. Burning of waste causes a lot of stuff in terms of toxic fumes that go in. Waste degrading in the open or in landfills is a major reason of methane. Food waste is also not spoken about, and why things like best before dates, sell by dates, all right, consume by dates, why these are all arbitrary sort of terms that have been put in place because a dal, let's say lentils or rice, doesn't expire. I mean, rice will only get better with age. So why do you have an expiry date on that? They've planned all this, that this is how much, because the longer it lasts, the less they sell. Out of all of this, of course, everybody talks about e-waste because it's a lot of companies you would see are advertising that they are recyclers of e-waste. They're not recyclers of e-waste, but they can't recover the silver and the gold. So imagine this, you're sending all this precious metal, which contains gold and silver abroad, and then you're importing back tons and tons of gold into the country. So economically, it makes no sense.
हेलो एवरीबॉडी, वेलकम बैक टू अनदर अमेजिंग एपिसोड ऑफ द क्लाइंटप्रेन्योर शो। आज का एपिसोड प्रोड्यूस्ड एक बहुत ही स्पेशल पार्टनरशिप के अंदर विद विंगीफाई फाउंडेशन। एंड एज यू गाइज नो, हम एयर पोल्यूशन के अराउंड काफ़ी सारे एपिसोड्स बना रहे हैं एंड आज के एपिसोड का थीम है एयर पोल्यूशन एंड वेस्ट। येस, आई थिंक मैं काफ़ी ज़्यादा इंट्रीग थी कि वेस्ट कैसे एयर पोल्यूशन का एक कारण बन सकता है। एंड फॉर दैट टुडे वी हैव समवन जिसने इस इंडस्ट्री में बहुत सारे साल दिए हैं। इनफैक्ट अगर मैं सही हूँ तो वो अपने घर वालों से लड़ गए थे इस इंडस्ट्री में आने के लिए। So please be with me and let's welcome Manik Thapar and let's understand from him कि waste industry है क्या, इंडिया में कैसे ऑपरेट करती है, क्या पॉलिसी लेवल पे काम हो रहा है, क्या strategies हैं, and what are some successful case studies that we can learn from. And I hope you enjoy this conversation. So let's get started. But before that, Wingify Foundation has sent some very special gifts for Manik. Let's give it to him and then let's hear from Manik what he has to say. So Manik, welcome on the Clientpreneur Show. And as I mentioned, Wingify ने आपके लिए कुछ special gifts भेजे हैं and I hope you enjoy these gifts. So Manik, ये बताओ कि like सबसे पहले how do you like what are different themes under waste? क्योंकि waste बहुत बड़ा topic है, like according to my knowledge, e-waste है, construction and demolition waste है, we have plastic waste and wet waste as we say it. So how do you classify waste and how does waste relates to air pollution?
In our sector, and how we look at it is we classify it in 3 different streams for ourselves. We classify it as recyclables, actually 4 to be recyclables, non-recyclables, organics, and hazardous. And then in all those classifications, there are sub-classifications. So for example, in recyclables, there'd be plastic, paper, metal, okay, e-waste. Some part of e-waste would also go into hazardous, some part would not. In hazardous, there'd be oil, used oil, diesel, filters, stuff of that sort. Then there's also medical waste, which is classified under hazardous again. So there are all these classifications. And then under those classifications, there are sub-classifications of different types of materials and what can and cannot be done with it.
And ये waste की problem कैसे, like does waste relate to air pollution?
Yeah, of course, waste relates to air pollution in a major way. Burning of waste causes a lot of stuff in terms of toxic fumes that go in. Waste degrading in the open or in landfills is a major reason of methane. Right. Landfills emit massive amounts of methane. And if you understand methane is a gas which is almost 80 or 88 times more harmful than CO2. Yeah. So you have these issues with waste, burning of waste again, which is very prevalent, burning of dry leaves, burning of organic waste, burning of e-waste, burning of wires to get to the copper and aluminum that is within the wires. So waste in itself, it causes air pollution, yes, but it also causes visual pollution. It also causes when you go out in the early wee hours of the morning, you'll see piles of waste everywhere, right? So it's visual pollution. And you also smell it. And along with smelling it, you're also taking all those toxic fumes and stuff in to your body. So there are a lot of issues that are pertaining to that would affect your health if waste is not managed properly.
So, like as you said, key e-waste hai and construction demolition waste and different types of waste. So let's really break down waste by waste. Like for example, e-waste. So what do you think कि इंडिया में कौन से टाइप का वेस्ट सबसे ज्यादा प्रॉब्लम है एंड किस टाइप के वेस्ट पे सबसे ज्यादा काम करने की जरूरत है? सो एक एक वेस्ट का उठाते हैं एंड एक एक वेस्ट को थोड़ा ब्रेक डाउन करके बताओ.
पहले तो you have to understand that 90% of this sector is unorganized. And you also have to understand that data not available.
When you say unorganized and when you say data is not available, इसको expand करो.
I'll expand on that. So those two things you have to first understand. Unorganized means these are either run by mom and pop shops, they're run by they're small and medium enterprises. There are business people who are doing this, but they're not doing this in a formal way. They're not paying their taxes either. They're not running a company. You see a telewala come to your house a lot of the times. That's the unorganized sector, right? They collect the garbage from your house, they take it, they segregate it, they remove all the recyclables, paper, plastic, whatever it is, and then they leave the rest in these dhalaus that they've made from where the municipal contractor would pick it up and take it to a landfill. All right. So that's one part of the equation in this whole waste stream. In the recycling side also, except paper, majority of the recycling is being done by the unorganized sector. Whether you look at plastic, whether you look at e-waste, even metal like iron, copper, a lot of this, there are unofficial smelting units all across the country, right? Where they're actually recycling this, and they're recycling it in a manner which is not environmentally friendly. It is not healthy for their employees. But they're doing that because it is very profitable, and they continue to do that because there's a lack of infrastructure that has been created. And there are very few businesses who are involved in this sector. Out of all of this, of course, everybody talks about e-waste because it's growing exponentially. I'll touch on e-waste. In e-waste, what happens is because a lot of companies you would see are advertising that they are recyclers of e-waste. They're not recyclers of e-waste. So they would dismantle the e-waste and they would recover all the metals from it. All right. They would recover the aluminum, the steel, copper wires, this and that. But they can't recover the silver and the gold and certain other precious metals. So all of that, majority of that from I'm talking about now the organized players, this is all exported abroad. All right. Where it is then extracted. And India is one of the countries which imports massive amounts of gold. I think it's one of the top countries where it imports massive amount of gold. So imagine this, you're sending all this precious metal, which contains gold and silver abroad, and then you're importing back tons and tons of gold into the country. So economically, it makes no sense. When you go to the pollution control board site and you look at these registered recyclers, you'll see a massive list. You should actually go and visit one of their facilities. A lot of the facilities are only on paper. So this is another huge issue, which is it's called certificate for hire. A lot of companies are only concerned with the fact that you show me that you're doing everything right on paper. So then I can show the authorities that I am doing everything right on paper. Do you understand that? So what ends up happening in that sense is that a paper certificate is given to a company, a contract is signed with a so-called official recycler. That recycler anyhow gives all that waste to a scrap dealer. The recycling is actually happening at the scrap dealer end, all right? And a certificate is issued. There are some players who are trying to do their best. I'm not saying that everyone is like that. There are a few players who are trying to do their best, but very little actual recycling. A lot of dismantling is happening. Very little recycling is happening because it's all getting exported. So e-waste, of course, is a huge, huge issue. Similarly, very few people talk about food waste and textile waste. Textile waste is a massive issue. Massive. Any waste to energy plant that you go to, you will see the amount of textile waste that is being burnt. You go to a landfill, you will see the amount of textile waste that is being dumped. So textile waste continues to be a massive issue, and more so because a lot of this is now man-made fiber, polyester, which is made out of plastic, right? Then you've got issues of microplastic seepage into the groundwater. God knows if we've done testing of all of this, but I'm pretty sure that the groundwater table is contaminated to an extent where it would take, I don't know what kind of effort it would take to start cleaning that up. So textile waste is a massive issue. Food waste is another huge issue. Indian weddings, restaurants, your own household, right? Grocery stores, large retail stores, all right? And I'll touch on this and as to why food waste is also not spoken about and why things like best before dates, sell by dates, all right? Consume by dates, why these are all arbitrary sort of terms that have been put in place because a dal, let's say lentils or rice, doesn't expire, right? I mean, rice will only get better with age, like wine, right? So why do you have an expiry date on that? A lot of other items have expiry dates on them. So these expiry dates are not meant to tell the consumer about whether it's safe to consume that product or not. It basically tells the consumer that the product might not look the same. It might not smell the same. Do you understand? So these are all, and this again is all part of a system called planned obsolescence, where they've planned all this. All right, they've planned all this, that this is how much, because if it lasts longer, the longer it lasts, the less they sell. So there's a business model behind all of this. So food waste, again, massive issue. Plastic, is it getting recycled? Of course, it's getting recycled. It's getting recycled by the unorganized sector at a massive scale, right? A lot of people don't understand that and don't realize that even food waste is getting recycled by the unorganized sector at a massive scale, because a lot of the food waste and clean food waste, especially from hotels, that ends up going to pig farms and it's used as feed for piggery, right? So they will mulch it up and they'll mix liquid in it and feed it to pigs. So food waste, textile waste is a huge issue. Of course, e-waste is a huge issue. Plastic in itself is a massive issue, but not all of plastic is a massive issue. Only certain types of plastic that cannot be recycled or that are hard to recycle or that are contaminated beyond a certain extent it is hard to find recyclers for them, because that technology is still not available in the country. Hospital waste, again, a massive issue, right? Because every one of your viewers has probably seen this, and you yourself have seen it. There are videos on YouTube about how syringes are thrown, blood soap bandages are thrown, diapers are thrown. I mean, I can keep going into it. Everything is an issue. Yeah. What needs to be done is, how do you tackle this? Because the grassroots problem for all of this is the policy that we have in place. And the grassroots problem for all of this is the effects of that policy, which is percolating down, and it is causing this effect that you see, which we'll discuss later on. So I won't say that one thing is a massive issue over another thing. These are all massive issues because people have not heard about something, so it's not in their head, right? But when they start hearing about the issues that this kind of waste is creating, they would look at everything and wait, and they say, "Holy shit! All of this is all an issue, and it is all policy driven."
You know, it's very interesting. Like, for example, the gold point you mentioned, I think I read it yesterday only. You've put like a post on it. And when I read these things, na कि India इतना gold export कर रहा है, I honestly thought, मैंने कहा यार मनिक से शायद कुछ टाइपो तो नहीं हो गया है. That was my initial thought कि
e-waste export कर रहा है.
E-waste मतलब e-waste export कर रहा है. And when I heard, मैंने कहा हम तो हर जगह पढ़ते हैं कि हम तो import करते हैं developing countries से. So and then you said the gold thing, and I wasn't able to relate. And I honestly thought कि typo है. I was about to text you. I said ठीक है Manik कल आ रहा है, ask him this thing. But that's very interesting what you said. Similarly, what you told about food waste. Like these are such interesting conversations to have. But touching on the food waste thing, Manik, एक बात बताओ कि food waste को कैसे tackle कर सकते हैं? आपको लगता है कि इसे from the source through the supply chain, like उस चीज को हम कैसे कम कर सकते हैं? मतलब जैसे for example you said the expiry date thing. I agree, I believe that कि manage ही ना करना पड़े, starting से ही हम waste कम generate करें.
पहले तो अगर आप इस चीज को देखेंगे, and you will realize that as consumers, there is something called the halo effect. So the halo effect is, let's say there's somebody good looking on the stage and he or she is speaking. There is a chance that the audience will listen to them a lot more intently and will believe them a lot more than somebody who is not good looking. If there is somebody in authority, there's a high likeliness that people will listen to somebody with authority a lot more than somebody who doesn't have
an
authority.
right?
Because people don't want to use their own brain to go out and do research on what somebody is saying. They think he's good looking or he's smart or she's good looking and she's smart, so they must be talking sense. So when you look at the halo effect, that halo effect then can be, it drips down into how we consume. When you go to a grocery store and you go to a fruit market, when you look at a banana that is too ripe or it's got blemishes on it, you will not buy that. You want perfect, good looking fruit, right? You want that perfect apple that looks red and it's not got any blemishes on it. It's perfect to consume. So we ourselves have been trained in such a manner to think that way, that just because this is a good looking fruit, maybe it's been polished, you don't even know, right? There's so many things that happen with fruits these days and vegetables these days. There and then you start this process of wastage, because now you've taken a banana that you could have consumed very easily, but you've said, screw this. Selection पे टाइम पे आपने उसको देख के कि वो अच्छा लग रहा है तो मैंने वो ले लिया. There itself, there becomes a huge issue with food waste, because then what do these companies do? These companies start moving that product out and they start dumping it into the dustbin and it ends up in the landfill.
They do dump it, like
Lot of them
उनको
dump.
losses नहीं होते हैं कि like when the consumer hasn't purchased
See,
and this is
a lot of them dump it because, see, there's no segregation happening in our country, right? And abroad also. And abroad the problem is tenfold. At least over here, you've got people who will segregate that. They'll see fruits and vegetables, they'll segregate it and they'll collect it and they'll sell it or they'll wash it and consume it. Right? To a great, I won't say to a great extent, but to some extent. So there itself, there's a huge issue when you as a consumer go to a market. So that's one thing that you can start doing right off the bat. There are many other things that from a food-based perspective that you can do at a household level, right? Composting, very few people compost.
Yeah.
All right. Even coffee, let's say you make a lot of coffee at home, that can then be kept and you can use that as a face scrub, you can use that as a body scrub. Just the grounded coffee.
Yes.
Right? So you end up not only end up saving money, but you've not created another line of consumption of some sort of a beauty product. Marriages, right? Hotels, there are businesses. Everything has to see, from my perspective, everything that you do, you have to do with the intent of it being profitable. Because if it is not, then you have to have somebody over here who's committed to support you for the rest of your life. And then there has to be something in it for that person, right? There are now business models available abroad which are very, very successful, all right? Where what is happening is, for example, they go to grow, so they have they collect these teams of maybe hundreds of people, and they go out in the evening and they will scavenge through dustbins outside massive grocery stores, and they will pull out all of the food waste that is good to consume. Okay, and they'll take it back home and they'll consume it. It's happening at a massive scale. Started to happen in massive scale. There are businesses who are calling up restaurants and saying, listen, you have food left over that is not consumed from your buffet? Yes, here is a business model. I've got customers over here, like expensive restaurants, who want to try your food. They will place the order through this app, package that food and deliver it to them and get paid for it. Businesses are saving money there and then, right? And they not only businesses are saving money, they're also earning an income and there is less waste being generated. A lot of businesses in India, because of this best before date, they also sell their product. So they say this product is going to be expiring in 3 months or 4 months or 5 months. So we're going to sell this at a discount.
Yeah, that happens.
It happens so they sell it to consumers at a discount, right? But they also sell it to traders at a discount. Okay, so let's say somebody's got 100 tons of atta that's going to expire or X amount of chini that's going to expire, right? So there are traders who would buy this in bulk and then take it to these local markets and start selling it there in wholesale. All right. So that business is prevalent. It's happening. There are many things that you can do at a restaurant. And we've had conversations with some restaurants, but of course people don't want to make that effort. So you can weigh the plate, you can weigh the food that you're serving. And then you can weigh after the customer has consumed the food, in which in 60% of the cases, food is always left on the plate. You weigh the food that is left, right? And then you plan your menu accordingly, the size of the plate accordingly. Do you understand? Maybe you're serving just too much food. You understand what I mean? So there, not only can restaurants save money, but they also reduce the amount of waste that they generate within their facilities, within their. So these are things that we've spoken to restaurants about, but not there are not too many takers on these things because it requires a consistent effort to do, right? And that effort does not have a direct correlation. They don't understand it. It does, but it doesn't have a direct correlation to the amount of revenue and income that they would make. They don't realize that if they end up saving or reducing the plate size, that's money saved. So food waste, there are and there are some NGOs in India who are doing good work also, where they collect food from restaurants, food from shadis, and then they go and hand it out to the poor, across the city. So that kind of stuff is also happening, but you need scalability. It needs to happen at scale, right? Delhi government says that Delhi generates, official figures, I think 12,000 or 8,000 or 9,000 tons a day of waste, right? This is all waste. This is all waste that they're talking about right now. And this is, I'm talking about municipal waste. So this is from households and stuff of that sort, right? But the actual figure is close to 15,000 tons, because a lot of the data does not take into account new migrants that are coming in, the floating population, tourists that are coming in, right? And a host of other things that are not being taken into account. This is just municipal waste. You got industrial waste, you got commercial waste, you got hospital waste. So the quantum is just massive. And out of that, according to what the data says, because we have done a lot of door-to-door collection, we know as an organization that when we were doing door-to-door collection, close to around 55 to 60% of the waste was organic, wet waste, right? I think about 15-20% was close to 20-25% was recyclables, and the rest was inert waste that you can't do anything with. Now the content of recyclables has gone up a little bit because people are ordering in more. People are using online to order packages XYZ. So that content of recyclables from households has gone up, but so has the amount of organic waste that is being generated. But where is the data to capture all of that? We don't have any data. We're just doing guesstimate. We're just taking one number and we are applying it across the country. But India is a country where you got 26 states, different eating habits, different consumption habits, different type of waste being generated. In food also, different type of waste being generated. In one state, there'll be a lot of liquid, very high content of water. In another state, the food is not going to be as watery, it'll be more dry. So, you've got all this stuff happening, but there's no data collection happening around this at all.
That's interesting. You said कि एक स्टेट में watery होगा, एक में dry होगा, but if we'll have data तो थोड़ा analyze कर पाएंगे कि state specific waste क्या आ रहा है, उस state specific waste का एक state specific या region specific plan हो सकता है. Like I'm not the expert, but I'm just guessing कि can something of this kind be done there?
Yeah, of course it can be done because data will provide you a picture, right? Right now, what is happening right now? The biggest challenge right now is that a lot of government officials are traveling abroad to see some beautiful plants there. They say ये तो बहुत अच्छी टेक्नोलॉजी है, वापस लाके इसको चेप दो, हमारे देश के लिए perfect है. Whereas it's not. So waste to energy being one of them. Waste to energy is not suited for India because our waste does not have that calorific value in it. Calorific value is what the energy that is generated when the waste is burnt, right? Yeah. So we don't have that because we've got a lot of wet waste. We've got there's a lot of water in that wet waste. Dal, you understand? It's got a lot of water. Curries, it's got a lot of water, right? Even rice has got a lot of water. So there's a lot of, the calorific value is very little and the water content is very high. The recyclables that burn well, like plastics, paper, it's all been removed by the rag pickers already. So what are you left with to burn? So now you're coming up with you're blatantly coming in and you're putting in a policy across all states that waste to energy is a go-to technology, whereas it is not. It is not going to work. It is shown that it is not going to work. There are ample examples around the country where it's not working. Where it can work is in cogeneration, right? So let's say there's a factory where it is using coal. So you can substitute that coal with low grade plastic, which is what is happening right now, to burn and to generate that. So you reduce the consumption of coal, but you're also here on the other side, you're also burning something, which is very toxic when you burn it, right? Plastic. Policy wise, there's a huge issue. There are a lot of gaps. There's a lot of gaps of understanding as what is happening at the grassroots level and what actually needs to be implemented and what can be implemented. And that again comes from the fact that unfortunately we don't value people who actually do the work. We value people who would in some way or the other. And then this reminds me of something that my father had said to me, that this is like a nation of, when you come here, Manik, you have to remember that everyone here is a middleman. Everyone can get work done for you, but very few people are actually willing to do that work themselves. And that is what is happening here. The policy mandate, in my opinion, has been taken over by the European Union because they've got technology that they want to push into our country. All right. And you will see that in our policy. They keep referring to the EU policies.
Really?
Oh, yeah. Read the policies, man. Read the policies. They'll keep referring to the EU policies to a great extent now. Do we not have people here to formulate policies that are India centric? Then, if I go deeper into it, you see who is guiding India and who's guiding our ministries with their policies. They're accounting firms. How does an accounting firm know about waste management?
Because they have technologies.
No, what does KPMG know about waste management? It's an accounting auditing firm. And here you're guiding a country about how it should manage its waste and what technologies it should bring in and what processes should it bring. When you have armchair consultants sitting and guiding policymakers, decision makers, then you get this policy that is not suited for our country. We've got millions of entrepreneurs here who are looking to come in, who are actually doing amazing work at a grassroots level. The unorganized sector, you will not believe it. Some of the people doing brilliant work there, as some of the SMEs in this sector are doing excellent work here, right? But they don't get the opportunity to grow because through these policies, again, you've monopolized and cartelized the entire sector. So what happens when you monopolize and cartelize the sector is that waste is something that in any nation, you have the right to collect it or you don't have the right to collect it. Now, if an entire city's contract has been given to one company, that one company now has the right to collect waste. Nobody else can. Do you understand? Nobody else legally can collect waste from your houses, from your industries in that area, if that company has been contracted that contract. Nobody else can do anything with it. Just that one company now has the right. It controls all of the waste. That company itself is not capable of doing this work. No one company is capable. Not our company, no one company. You need hundreds and thousands of companies coming in. But this policy is structured in a manner where it is impeding the entry of new entrepreneurs. It is impeding the growth of current entrepreneurs. So all of these things, policy-related issues is a major problem in how we manage our way, how we deal with it. To give you an example, and I talk about this quite a lot, is the tipping fee model of how contracts are in India are based in terms of municipal contracts, in terms of collection and transportation. The tipping fee model basically is a model which incentivizes companies to dump more waste into the landfill because they get paid on a per ton basis. What incentive does that company have to recover any waste? It doesn't. It's simply a company that is in the business of transportation. Transports waste from place A to place B, and it gets paid shitload of money to do that. All these things, somebody needs to sit down and explain to the government. It's not the government doesn't have good intent. It just has bad guidance from certain bad characters who have vested interest in ensuring that the system doesn't change. Why do you think the landfills keep growing? Why do you think that after spending almost 20,000 crores on the Swachh Bharat Abhiyan, there's still garbage on the streets? Why do you feel that we still are lacking at a massive scale infrastructure to deal with the waste that is being generated. Why do you think that we hardly have any commercial composting plants in the country?
दिल्ली में कुछ है ना ऐसा composting वाला?
एक तो plants है, but that's not enough.
Okay, like that's very few.
Right. There are two plants, composting plants, but you go and see them also. Please go see them. The point is that paper pe hona or actual hona is very different. Yeah. What I'm trying to say is that there are all these issues, and these issues have been there for years. And these issues will continue to be there unless there is proper policy direction. Because only policy and government intervention can, at this stage, change the course.
Manik, like, what do you envision? जैसे, do you envision a future जहाँ पर through innovative, waste technologies, waste management or waste recycling, whatever you call it, I would say more localized, more Indianized, maybe city-specific technologies can actually solve this problem. And B, what I am seeing here is that ecosystem approach लानी होगी waste में, where we are actually collaborating, be it private stakeholders, be it NGOs, be it government organizations. So, what do you envision? Do you feel ऐसा कुछ कभी कर पाएंगे?
No, see, I am a very free market, limited government thinking kind of a brain, right? So my vision of it is probably very different than everybody else's. My vision is to open up the sector to the private sector, to SMEs. It should be easy as hell and easy as 1, 2, 3 for me to go to a municipality and say, listen, hey, I want to start a waste management business. Give me the rights to collect. Give me the rights to segregate. Give me the rights to dispose. All right. Give me the rights to recycle if I have a plant or whatever. But I should be able to do that as an Indian citizen. Any Indian citizen should be able to do that. Any entrepreneur wanting to risk his own capital should be able to do that. He should be able to go to a municipality and start this business of waste collection. Whether he just wants to collect waste and dump it at the landfill, that is his prerogative, but he should be able to do it. He should get permissions very easily. Because if there is no competition, who suffers? In this case, the biggest sufferers are you and I and all of your listeners. Because not only are we suffering by paying increased taxes to fund corporations who are charging a tipping fee from the government, but you're also suffering in terms of your health. You're also suffering in terms of poor service. So there are a lot of things associated with this.
And individuals, like when we say about suffering, someone told me this thing that there are individuals who are living on landfills.
Yeah, of course. So so see, this is what I'm saying. People don't understand. Those people are living out of some of those people are living on those landfills because that itself is another mafia. So there's a landfill mafia where contracts are given to private contractors who then have these hordes of rack pickers and they have their own area at a landfill. When a truck comes, they know what is in it. They'll start doing the segregation and removing it. Right? So this is a sector. It doesn't have industry status. There's no industry status given to it. So there's no official recognition. It has been overtaken by the NGOs. It's got a jhola wala auntie mentality where anytime you go and speak to anybody and you tell them that I'm in waste management, they look at you like you're running an NGO. They think it's social work. This is not social. This is hardcore business. This is a capital intensive business which requires you to invest your money into trucks, equipment, all of those things. And if you're not making money, then there's no point in being in it. So the whole point over here is that you need entrepreneurs to come in to open. Innovation will only happen when there are other people coming in and there are 10 people doing something. So you're now competing with those 10 people. So now you want to differentiate yourself. So you need to innovate, right? Innovation is not going to happen if you give it to 1 or 2 companies and then they're just sitting there and doing the same old thing. Innovation doesn't work that way, right? So if I want to invest my own money and risk my own money, I should have the ability to do work wherever I want to do it. So that's one part of it. There's also, there's the garbage mafia. There's corruption, cronyism. There are a lot of things. And I'm sounding a little too negative, but despite all of those things, the opportunity to change, to bring about change is massive. And that lies in the hands of our government. because they are directing the policy. And unfortunately, they're not bringing on board people who are working at the ground level. Rack pickers. The amount of knowledge rack pickers have, I don't think anybody else has. I mean, rack pickers will look at plastic lying down and without touching it, a lot of them can tell you, or just by touching it, a lot of them can tell you what type of plastic. Is it PP? Is it HDPE? Right? Just by looking at it. So they have in-depth knowledge about what is happening, how collection is done, what kind of waste is being generated from individual houses, from industries, from commercial establishments. They have in-depth knowledge about what happens to this waste, the recycling of it. So that's from the business perspective, this has to be looked at as an industry that can generate massive amounts of revenue. The tax collection for the government could be huge if you start bringing in the unorganized sector into an organized in an organized manner into the mainstream, right? Think of the amount of tax that the government can collect that it is missing out on right now. A lot of the transactions happen in cash still. Look at the recycling of plastic, of e-waste. So employment generation, revenue collection. Besides that, lowering the dependency of the country to import material from outside, right? Because we can now start recycling our own waste. So we can now lower our dependency on our import bill to bring in stuff from outside. There are so many things that you can do. But somebody needs to actually, and they need to have, and I've written about this, they need to have a completely different ministry, a ministry of waste management, where there's a minister who's put in place just to look at this. Because right now there's confusion. There's 7 different ministries that look after waste management. I mean, 7 different departments that you will go mad. Up with housing and urban development. Okay, then there's that Swachh Bharat mission, Jal Shakti mission, Jal Shakti department. Then there is the Ministry of Forest and Environment. Then Niti Aayog also has a say in everything. You understand where I'm coming from now. You get the picture, right? But that said, and again, I keep repeating it, the opportunity is massive. We are in it because we see that opportunity. We live that opportunity every day. But we are also here to talk about what can be done. I'm not saying, from my perspective, I'm not coming here and saying put in these policies in place and only let me work. I'm saying open up the market. I need competition because I'm getting lethargic. You know what I mean? I need other people to come in and innovate, man, so they can push me and they can push my organization to innovate and invest more and do new things and not carry on in that whole mundane system of what we've been doing. And that will only happen if you don't, you yourself, if tomorrow somebody else starts another podcast on the same topic as you are, there's competition now. 3 more start, 5 more start. You will have to up your game. You'll have to find new innovative things to talk about or do, right? Because customers are going to listen to something that is interesting. Similarly, my customers, some of them might be fed up. I don't know, but they're not saying it because there's no other option. Where are they going to go? All I'm saying is let competition come in. Make it easier starting a restaurant. You go abroad, you go to America, you go to Europe, you're copying their policies. Why don't you also copy their business model? The World Bank and USAID, I think it was USAID and World Bank, this whole tipping fee model of landfills was a push from the World Bank and the USAID. Whereas the Controller Auditor General in India in 1990s, I think, had done a report and it clearly said that this is not a model for us. But since we were a recipient of World Bank money, India being one of the highest recipients of world pressure, listen, either you want this money, then here's a policy. Don't want this policy, you don't get the money, right? So similarly now, you see the effects of every technology that you see that is coming into the country right now pertaining to waste, majority of it is coming from the European Union. And then you start reading the policy and you start seeing how the policy is also being dictated to align with the technologies that are being bought in from the European Union. You start following the money. What happens in a business? My business grows. Let's say Tata, for example. Tata is a global business. It's all over the world, right? Tata has a beautiful hotel in New York. Now, if I start a business in New York of waste collection, I'd go to Tata and I'd say, listen, I'm also an Indian business. I have all my permissions. Help me out. Help an Indian brother out, right? What happens in this case is that a lot of these consulting firms that have been formed, they've been formed with a very precise purpose. Not only do you expand your own reach, but you are also mandated to expand the reach of other industries within that belong to your country. So when you get a consulting project, you better consult and you better suggest companies that manufacture XYZ products from your own country. You push them. When you start reading and you start realizing how global trade works, how large corporations work, how it's all intertwined, then you start realizing how policies can be manipulated and dictated to move in a certain direction.
That's interesting and like I got to learn a lot from this because मैंने नहीं सोचा था कि चीज़ें ऐसे मूव करती हैं, ऐसा होता है। बट आई जेन्युइनली होप कि जैसे एक जो वेस्ट मिनिस्ट्री वाली चीज़ आपने बोली कि वी हैव अ स्पेसिफिक मिनिस्ट्री फॉर वेस्ट एंड सेकेंडली आई ऑनेस्टली बिलीव कि कोई भी चेंज तब आता है जब आपके पास पूरे इकोसिस्टम से लोग होते हैं। These are rat pickers, these are people who are developing Indianized indigenous solutions who know कि किस state में क्या काम करेगा and also having like case studies from individual states. For example, I feel Indore is doing a brilliant job. एंड आई नो सो मेनी ऑफ माई एंटरप्रेन्योर फ्रेंड्स जो स्टेट के अलग अलग पार्ट में जाके काम कर रहे हैं सो कैन वी गेट ऑल ऑफ देम ऑन बोर्ड आस्क देम टू शेयर देयर एक्सपीरियंसेस एंड नॉट जस्ट एक तो हो गया वेस्ट मैनेजमेंट का पार्ट मानिक ऑल्सो लेट्स टॉक अबाउट वेस्ट सेग्रीगेशन बिकॉज I think the social stigma that's attached to the waste that you also talked about that needs to be changed. And I see a lot of companies today. For example, there are companies like Daily Dump who are doing composters, and they have done that. Like the way they have designed their composters. So like लोगों को नहीं लगे कि ये कुछ गंदा है कूड़ा है because कूड़े से हम हमेशा वो गंदे वाला perception आता है. And when you said about kids, I would like to give a huge shout out. I don't know if you know about them, Sonika Bhasin.
No.
So Sonika has raised Abir, and the way Abir is little, very little, but he knows composting. He knows how to make bioenzyme, and he talks about it कि
Wow.
composting ऐसे करते हैं वैसे करते हैं. And it's just so brilliant to see कि उन्होंने कैसे बहुत ही young age से उसको ये सब सिखाया है. And I feel as parents we can also play that role. With our kids at least जो हम individual level पे कर पाए वो हम थोड़ा करके behavior change ला पाए तो हमें लाना चाहिए. So that's there. And I think Manik, like you've talked a lot about so many things. I'm very surprised कि यार ऐसा होता है because मुझे नहीं लगा था कि इतना ज़्यादा ये सेक्टर अनऑर्गेनाइज्ड है, इतनी सारी लूज लूप होल्स हैं, इतने सारे लूज एंड्स हैं. सो डू यू फील जैसे हमने अगर कोई हमें सुन रहा है किसी को ऐसे डर लग जाए कि यार इतना मतलब सेक्टर है क्या मुझे घुसना भी चाहिए या फिर नहीं या फिर शुड दे वेट फॉर पॉलिसी की कभी पॉलिसी चेंज होगी तो मैं इस सेक्टर में जाऊंगा नहीं तो नहीं जाऊंगा.
No, I think that people should jump in. My personal opinion is that people should jump in because see, any sector that you pick will have massive issues. We also run a logistics business, right? Trucking. That's a different ball game. Everybody thinks कि truck खरीद लिया लगा दो रोड पे माल मिलेगा इधर से उधर ले जाओ पैसे. That's not it. Similar issues as waste because again it's completely unorganized. The potential in this sector is enormous. What I would say if you want to jump in, anybody looking to jump in, all right? But jump in with a long-term horizon. Don't come into this sector and say कि मैं 2 साल में I'm going to create a unicorn. It's not going to happen. You will hear about some unicorns coming up in this sector, but they're not doing any work on the ground level. They're all technology companies that are bringing waste traders and waste sellers and waste buyers together. All right. Either that's what they're doing. Very few people, very few people who are into hardcore collection, transportation, segregation in the organized side. Unorganized to pura wahi hai. So the opportunity I keep saying is massive. It's a huge opportunity. Huge opportunity. You can get into collection. You can get into segregation. You can be a trader. You can set up your own recycling plant for plastic, paper, tons of other things. You must have a practical approach to this. Practical approach is that this sector is riddled with a lot of issues, like every other sector in our country. So another important thing that most people don't understand and that I just wanted to pull out was that you go to a grocery store, any store, and you buy a product, comes in packaging. What people don't understand is that you've already paid that company for that packaging because that's inbuilt in the cost. Now you take that packaging, you put it in your dustbin, right? Now, it may or may not get recycled. It may be recyclable packaging. It might not be recyclable packaging. Now, if it's not recyclable packaging, what ends up happening is ends up going to a landfill in most cases. So now the consumer has paid for that packaging twice. How? Once he's paid it when he or she bought the product. Second, he's paid it or she's paid it by funding as a taxpayer the tipping fee model of disposing that into the landfill. Now they're paying it for the third time because they're now doing landfill mining, where they put these massive machines to pull out the waste, convert it into RDF and send it to cement kilns. These are private companies doing it, but funded by public money. So now for that same packaging, you've paid the taxpayer, consumer, has paid thrice. Do you understand? You paid once when you bought it. You paid it to dispose it. Now you're paying it to pull it out again. So that's one. On your point of segregation, of course, I diverged a little bit. I wanted to come back on that. Was that the point is that, yes, eventually a waste is going to get segregated because the unorganized sector is doing a brilliant job in doing that. All right. But what also ends up happening is that you might segregate your garbage, but you will see a lot of the times the Swachh Bharat van that comes, they don't give a shit if you've segregated or not. They will take it and they'll mix it into the one big container.
Because they have no option.
No, they don't. They have an option that is already containerized. One, the truck is too small, maybe. Second, it's already, they don't have an incentive because what they are doing is they are a private contractor that's got the contract. So they're going to take that waste and take it to a Dalao or local dump where the rack pickers will then come and remove all of their recyclables. So they know that this waste is anyways going to get segregated by the rack pickers. Because then over there also there's a nexus where these dumps are subcontracted out to rack pickers. This is your dump. X amount of waste comes, you pay me X amount of money every month for the recyclables. For the right to sit here and segregate. Why? Because it's me as a contractor. I have the legal right to collect waste from this area and I will dictate who can take the recyclables and who can't. Do you understand how this nexus works now?
But then it's also about, like, even if it's getting segregated on the landfills, but still the size of landfills are increasing. So, like, I don't think that as individuals, it give us like a free pass to just put our waste and
no, I'm not
use
saying it gives
around.
you a free pass. I'm saying that the system is such that even though you are doing your work, it's getting mixed, firstly, in most cases, because of this system over here. Now, when you talk about what is happening abroad, system is there. But the point is what is happening with your waste after that. It's been well documented that from the European Union, countries in the European Union to Canada to America, they've all been shipping their waste to Malaysia, Indonesia, India, Pakistan. So when a consumer there thinks that he's segregated in waste and he's done partaken in recycling, that waste is being shipped all over the world globally. India still, to this date, imports plastic waste from abroad. We import massive amounts of paper waste. And in between that paper waste is diapers, plastic, a lot of other rubbish that comes in. So it's not segregation. Yes, it's the first defense to ensure that you move towards the right path of recycling a product, right? But the whole system has to be present in order for you to get the benefits of that beautiful segregation that you've done. Contamination, there are tens of other things that come into play over here.
So Manik, what are your thoughts on, जैसे हम solar waste की बात करते हैं, हम बात करते हैं अब wind turbines की जो turbines है, हम उस waste की बात करते हैं, तो how big is that issue और अभी currently क्या हो रहा है उसके लिए?
See, that it's going to start becoming a bigger and bigger issue. Globally, of course, most of the wind blades are getting landfilled. Some small projects that have come up where they're making surfboards out of them and they're starting to use it to make building material or small houses. But the biggest problem is, of course, that most of this waste is non-recyclable. The wind blades are non-recyclable. On the solar side, of course, you've got glass and you've got some plastic in it that you can recover. But again, the technology to do that is not prevalent right now. Non-existent in our country. We need to start investing in that and start thinking about it, because again, that's going to become a huge issue where you're going to take all those solar panels. Where are you going to take? We don't have land. Then you're going to create another dump. So those things need to be thought about very thoroughly about building that infrastructure now. Start investing in that infrastructure now so that tomorrow we don't have an issue. Start recovering the metals, start recovering the materials from these items so that we can start using them back in creating and manufacturing these items or other items.
We don't have to wait कि volumes of waste generate हो उसके बाद कुछ करें.
That's right. You have to start it now. You have to start it now because the volumes of waste are going to start generating now. It's going to start coming up very soon. You're going to start seeing it's already happening abroad. It's going to start happening here also.
Yeah, this reminds me of this one. I don't know if you've read about it. Recently, H&M का कुछ आया था कि like उनके पास एक policy है ना कि आप अपने कपड़े जाके दो पुराने and it goes to recycling and you get some points or something. So what happened was कि बाहर के कुछ लोगों ने I think उन्होंने उन कपड़ों को tag कर दिया था.
हाँ.
And when they tagged it, they found कि मतलब I might be wrong with the places कि like it ended up in some different places. वो recycling के लिए कभी गया ही नहीं. इंडोनेशिया और पता नहीं कौन सी जगह थी मुझे नाम ही नहीं याद है. And they said that they're recycling it, but actually वो नहीं गया वहाँ पर.
So a lot of corporates have, and that's called greenwashing, and we are very well aware of what is happening in that sphere, including policies such as EPR, extended producer responsibility, which again is at least over here, is a massive on-paper exercise that is happening. And to your listeners, I might be sounding gloomy, but I'm just providing a practical, true picture of what is happening in the sector. It sounds gloomy. It is gloomy, but again, there is massive opportunity if you come in and start doing good work, because good work is always appreciated. And there are companies out there that are looking for good work. They are looking to work with other companies that are genuine, that are looking to work with other companies who are honest. We are honest with our clients about the true picture of what is happening in the waste management sector. We tell them we can't recycle this because there is no infrastructure. It has to go to a landfill or it has to get burnt. Now, if there is no infrastructure, I can't do anything about it until I get to a point where I have enough money to build that infrastructure. And that's what we are starting to do now. We're starting to put recycling plants across the country, starting with Greater Noida, then moving into Bangalore, then moving into Calcutta, then moving into Maharashtra, right? Because we want to close that circle. We are almost there. We do the collection, we do the segregation, we do the pre-processing also. We're just missing the processing part in the plastic side of things. For paper, we don't need to worry because there's so many paper mills. For iron, we don't need to worry because there's so many people smelting iron. For e-waste, yes, we are thinking whether we should get into it and set up our own unit. But now there are other units that are coming up. So I think Hindalco just announced 2,000 crores being invested in copper recycling and e-waste. And there are certain other e-waste recyclers who are now ramping up and who want to extract the metals from the e-waste that they get. So why reinvent the wheel when there are so many people who are already doing it? We want to focus in areas where it will add value to our company and to our customer. Plastic is one of those areas because everything is very opaque. You don't know what is happening. You don't know where your goods are going. Hardly any transparency and traceability. That is something where we are trying to close the loop completely. Food waste is something where we are trying to close the loop completely, right? Textile waste that we collect, recently done a tie-up with a company in Sonipat who actually does recycling. We've seen what they are doing. So we know now that these guys are actually doing work. Prior to that, the waste was going to a waste-to-energy plant and getting burnt. But now we have an opportunity to deal with and work. And so when you're talking about this ecosphere can only be created if the unorganized sector is bought into the preview of the organized. And the organized sector is allowed to grow by allowing competition to thrive and innovation to happen. Yes, you're right. There are a lot of NGOs. This sector is full of NGOs who are doing outreach work, education, providing medicine to the rack pickers, assisting them by forming groups. Is happening in certain places also needs to be discussed because they themselves are creating monopolies. Why should and what interest do NGOs have in creating monopolies? Now, if I go to some of the top 5-star hotels in Delhi, they will not entertain any private organization or let any other private organization enter over there because of fear of certain NGOs. Because then what ends up happening is you, as a private organization, आपने गरीब के पेट पे लात मार दी. You see You see, when I was talking about how poverty is being used as a marketing tool, is that NGO not earning? That rat picker not earning? He was a business earlier also. You've just now formalized him and given him a social structure and marketed him as a poor man, whereas he's earning lakhs. Or that company is earning lakhs on a monthly basis, mind you, not on a yearly basis. So why should they not be open to competing with the private sector? Now people will say, yeah, it's you're too right wing, rightist. Your thinking is too. No, my thinking is that, man, that those but in certain cities they've taken over the whole city. Pune is one example where you just can't work without them. They won't let you work, right? So my thing is this: that listen, do whatever you want to do, but allow competition. Compete with others. You're so good. Let's compete. Let's compete on service. Compete on price. Let's compete on ensuring that we provide the best technology and method to clean the waste so it doesn't get dumped in the landfill. I have no qualms about losing work. Then take my work away because it's been taken away by somebody who's better than me. It's my own fault for not improving and investing and innovating. That's why I keep coming back to this theme of, everybody thinks that this is a social sector. Everybody wants to get into it. A lot of people are looking to get into it, right? But there needs to be a proper understanding of the sector first. You need to understand it properly. It's a very complex sector. You can't do everything in it. Pick one thing, be good at it, and then add additional things. Because there's too many tentacles.
But like coming towards the end, I would definitely recommend you to please go check out Mission Life.
Sure.
And if there are any open proposals, please do put this thing. If it gets accepted, because you have got a lot of in-depth insights into the sector. So please karo.
See, I have a very different approach of moving around and tackling things, right? Unfortunately, it doesn't work because people think it's too aggressive or you hit. But I am who I am. I write what I write, right? That's in my mind. I feel that you should just be straightforward and tell the other person what the problems are.
Yeah.
Right? Eventually they will find out that it's not eventually, I bet they know that these are the problems. But I hope that eventually they can have the courage.
Actions will be taken.
Yeah, courage to actually put in place people who can change the system. It's not that the prime minister, I'm not saying that the prime minister doesn't want to change. Of course he wants to change. But we have a bureaucracy that needs to be overhauled in order for us to bring about this change. Right? We need to have the right people who have with the right knowledge,
Right skill sets.
the right skill sets, right? Who can then provide the right kind of
Right.
guidance. Now, if you don't have all of that, you can have ample amounts of missions. You can have tens of programs running. They will all meet the same fate because you don't have people at the ground level to guide you correctly. And you don't have people in the ground level to implement those programs. Everybody there is looking for his fair share of the taxpayers' money to put in their pocket. That's the truth.
I genuinely hope this changes. Matlab, this has been like a lot of eye opening for me कि ऐसा होता है. I genuinely did not expect, Manik, कि all these things will come up, like the things you shared, the things you told about. So thank you for sharing this. Thank you for bringing a new perspective, I would say, to this waste industry. And yes, thank you for being with us here today. But just to end, I would just like to add this thing for our listeners as well कि ये सोच लेना, मतलब this is what I feel is that ठीक है, but as individuals we can do things and we should and we must do things because accountability हमें हमारे end पे थोड़ी सी लेनी चाहिए.
Of course.
So like I just don't want people to feel कि हम कैसे भी कंज्यूम करते रहें, हम कुछ भी यूज़ करते रहें, हम कैसे भी फेंकते रहें, कोई है जो हैंडल कर लेगा. ऑफ कोर्स देयर आर थिंग्स, जो आपने रैक पिकर्स वाली चीज़ बोली, बट देयर आर स्टोरीज ऑफ रैक पिकर्स जो जेन्युइनली बोलते हैं कि यार यहाँ पर हमें ये मेडिकल वेस्ट नहीं चाहिए. फॉर एग्जाम्पल व्हेन वी टॉक अबाउट सैनिटरी पैड्स,
Sure.
Today there are companies who are giving you alternatives with say cloth pads, with say menstrual cups and all these other alternatives. Similarly for other areas as well. So I feel कि let's also keep developing alternative solutions जो हमें ज़्यादा waste दिखता है landfills में, ताकि सेग्रीगेशन तो ठीक है बट वो वेस्ट वहां तक पहुंचे ही ना. But thank you, Manik. Like, thank you for giving us this perspective and thank you for sharing all that you did today. I'm genuinely grateful for that and thank you.
Thank you, Shweta.